Hello, welcome back to my channel. I made a video maybe a year and a bit ago about how I don't drive in the UK and how I probably never will. I lied. I have actually now been driving for about 2.5 months. So I started to drive a tiny bit kind of since the beginning of the year. I kind of got put on the insurance of the car, but I was very hesitant to drive. The reason being, I only really drove for like a year and a half. So I passed my test when I was 19 in Germany, and then I drove for about a year and a half, and then I moved to the UK and I lived in London, and you really don't need a car in London. So I wasn't driving very much, and I sold my car in Germany, so I only really drove like my mum's or my dad's car when I came back to visit Germany. So I didn't get much driving practice, and I never really drove, a prolonged time. So whilst I wasn't a terrible driver necessarily, I also wasn't the most confident driver. Now fast forward over 10 years, and where I live now in Rochester, it does make sense to drive. So unfortunately for me, I had to kind of learn how to drive in the UK. Obviously the biggest new thing, the biggest issue is that in the UK you drive on the left hand side, and for me that was actually a really difficult thing to get my head around. So I was obviously like on the passenger seat of other people driving for years, and because I have a license, I always kind of imagined, oh, what would I do in this situation when we like got to a crossing or got to a roundabout, and I always caught myself wanting to go like around the roundabout the wrong way, or wanting to take a turn that would be wrong here. So I always kind of told myself I'm just never going to drive here, because clearly my brain is just not able to adapt to driving on the other side of the road. Yeah, so, but now I had to face reality, and I started to drive a little bit and not alone. So the first month or so I only drove with someone next to me who's had their license in the UK for a long time and has always driven on the left side so that they could correct me. I didn't do too badly, but yeah, it was challenging, and the first time I drove by myself I was scared. But now I've done probably about 100 drives without someone else, just by myself, and I'm doing okay. There's definitely a few things that still kind of catch me out a little bit, but overall I think I kind of got the hang of it now. And there's a few things that throw me off a lot in the UK. I think, well, I can only really speak for England, and I can only really speak for my part of England, which is Kent. And at least where I am in Medway, it's quite hilly. And I'm from the north of Germany, which we also call the flat land, because there's literally nothing there. It's just flat. It's like the Netherlands. There's just no hills or mountains or anything. It's just flat. So Rochester is actually really hilly. So me having to do hill starts all the time has been a challenge, but I'm much better at it now. But that's something I didn't really have to practice much where I'm from. The other thing is, because you drive in miles per hour, and in Germany we drive kilometers per hour, the speed limits are slightly different. So a 30 mile per hour speed limit here is about 48 kilometers per hour in Germany. So every time I drive here, I always feel like I'm slightly too slow, because I'm so used to driving like 42, like 52 or like 55 kilometers an hour. Whereas here, I have to stick to the 30 limit, because that's another thing. The fines for speeding here are intense. Like intense. So in Germany, let's say you're in a 50 kilometer per hour zone and there is a speed camera. They don't usually even turn on until you're faster than 57 kilometers per hour. Like, they just have that much tolerance. And even if you got caught, let's say driving, I don't know, 60 kilometers an hour, the fine would be like 30 or 40 euros. That would be it. No points. You just get a small fine. Even if you go like 65, it would probably be like 50 euros and no points. You usually have to go at least 21 kilometers per hour over the limit to get a higher fine and maybe points. I learned that in the UK, even if you get caught at 33 miles per hour in a 30 zone, you immediately are fined £100 and you get 3 points. So that scares me because, well, I'm not saying that you should speed or anything, but I think it's, you know, very intense to be fined that much, that quickly, because everyone knows, like, sometimes you just get to a bit of a road that just goes downhill or something, and that's where they always put speed cameras here, like once you go down a hill or stuff like that. So yeah, I've been very conscious about the speed that I'm driving at, clearly. And the other thing I find so difficult in the UK is first, the roads are so narrow because a lot of the towns here are historic, they're like Victorian, they're not actually, they weren't built for cars necessarily, so you're constantly squeezing, and loads of roads that look like they should be one-way roads are two-way roads, and you have to somehow make space. And because of how narrow everything is and how little parking there is, there's usually always vans and cars just with their hazards on in the middle of the road that you have to navigate around, and then there are buses, so it's just quite chaotic and stress-inducing. And the other thing is roundabouts. At least down here, they love a roundabout. Like, there's like, if you drive to the IKEA, I think I counted there was like over 20 roundabouts on that route, and it's not very far. So, and some of your roundabouts, like I've said in the other video where a lot of you got really angry about it, that I said in the UK a roundabout can just be like a painted circle on the floor. Because for you that's normal, but for other countries that's really weird. Our roundabouts in Germany all have an island in the middle and they're quite big. We wouldn't just put like a little white circle on the ground and then everyone knows it's a roundabout, because we would just put a junction there or a crossing and not make it a roundabout. But everywhere they can here, they make a roundabout. There's also big normal, what I would call a normal roundabout, but then you also have these roundabouts that have like 6 lanes where you kind of cross lanes in the middle of the roundabout, where you have like traffic lights inside the roundabout. So those are confusing because it's often really hard to know what lane you should be in. And then again, on some of them, you seem to be able to switch lanes whilst you're in the roundabout. So they stress me out. So I try and avoid those. And then the other thing is, I haven't actually driven on a motorway yet because I haven't had to, but obviously the speed limit in the UK is 70 miles per hour, which I believe is about 120 something kilometers per hour. And that's the limit. So you can't go faster anywhere. And in Germany, obviously, we do have speed limits on a lot of the Autobahn, but there are big stretches where there is no speed limit. So 100 and even 130 is quite slow for Germany. My car that I had in Germany didn't actually go faster than 147 kilometers per hour. That's the fastest I ever got it to go. I used to have a Renault Twingo. And it went that fast, which I was quite surprised at, but like loads of people on the Autobahn go like over 200 kilometers per hour, 230 kilometers per hour, which is like, I don't know, 150 miles per hour. And I'm actually in favor of Germany introducing a national speed limit of like 130 kilometers an hour. Even though it's very controversial there, I'm personally of the belief that like Germans holding on to their Autobahn being without a speed limit is a lot like Americans holding on to the Second Amendment. Because if you look into stats, so I looked into like accident stats at UK versus Germany, because a lot of people say the UK have the safest roads in Europe, and it's hard to believe for me because I seem to always see accidents here. But I looked it up, and the amount of accidents Germany, UK, actually very similar. They're almost identical, but German accidents are more fatal because of the speed. So if you have an accident here, you might get hurt, but you're less likely to die. In Germany, you're much more likely to die. So I think it's just common sense to put in speed limits to make accidents less fatal. But yeah, I think part of me thinks that the reason why Germany is holding on to this so tightly is it's something they're known for. Like the Autobahn is something people outside of Germany know about and like they find cool, because it's like it's not something you can do in like most other countries. You can't just go on the Autobahn and drive like 250 miles per hour or whatever. And I think Germany has this thing where they want to hold on to anything they're known for that isn't like the Second World War, because that's something you just, if you're ever in an argument with someone online or anywhere, if they get frustrated, they just pull out, they just call you a Nazi, because that's then the argument to end all arguments. So I think Germany just wants to hold on anything they can that is not that, but they're keeping it to their own detriment, I think. So yeah, I'm personally in favor of the speed limit, even though I do have to admit it is cool when you're on the Autobahn and you can just go for it, especially if it's empty, you know. It is cool, but cool versus definitely, you know, just stop. But yeah, these are the main things I can think about. In terms of like stress and things, I think, I don't know, I haven't driven enough in Germany lately to really make a comparison, but I do feel like a lot of the drivers here are quite aggressive. I've had, you know, people beep at me immediately because I'm not overtaking a bus immediately when they're stopping, or I don't know, there just doesn't seem to be much patience for anything, but at the same time, I don't think it's very different in other countries. So yeah, driving's been okay. I've got a bit of a routine now where I really just drive to work and back, and I know like a few other routes. Like I know how to drive to my local post office, and I know how to drive to the supermarket, but I'm not like, I don't really ever do big long drives. Like the longest drives I do are like half an hour long. But yeah, I'm gonna keep doing it, and maybe in a year or so I'll be really, really confident. But for now, that's it. So yeah, I lied. I do actually drive in the UK, and I'm doing okay. So yeah, I just thought I'd share that with you. And thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in another video soon.